Barakatuhu, and a very good afternoon to every one of you. We welcome you all to today's lecture program. Today is Law Day, and today's lecture is based on the review of the book The Cultural Atlas of Islam, Part 4, Chapter 14, The Law. This very important book written by Professor Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi and Mrs. Lamia Al-Faruqi. And today's speaker is Professor M. Afzalwani. He is Professor of Law and Director Coordination, Guru Gobind Singh, Indraprasth University, Delhi. He is former member, Law Commission of India, ex-dean, University School of Law and Legal Studies, Guru Gobind Singh, Indraprasth University, Delhi. He is also the vice chairman of the Institute of Objective Studies. He needs, in fact, no introduction. So without wasting any time, I would request Professor M. Afzalwani to start his lecture, please. Thank you very much.
اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم رب زدني علما رب زدني علما رب زدني علما. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's topic is basically a review talk on one of the very important subjects, as well as on one of the very important writings, which is the writing of a very important person who has lived a very important period in 20th century, including 2 world wars and then emergence of a legal regime at the global level, at national levels, and many constitutions got shaped, and a good corpus of knowledge developed in that period. And he himself lived in the underdeveloped, developing, and developed world. I mean, Dr. Ismail Raji Faruqi. I'm not going into his life history, but I know that we are between Asr and Maghrib. So I'll speak for about 25 minutes or so, and then I would like to have some questions. And I'm happy that the listeners are very rich. We have a very quality audience, if not quantitatively that much. We can send it later on. So I'll begin by saying that the book written by Faruqi and his wife, The Cultural Atlas of Islam, it has covered many aspects, and then it has a chapter on law as well. And there, Faruqis have tried to explain the legal aspect of Islam, and then I would say in generality, they have provided a very good material that humanity should get guided and have a better understanding of the most important regulator of human behavior, that's law. And now law has become most important because the other regulators, they have got diluted largely, whether it was custom, usage, ethics, morality. And definitely religion has also lost the grip which it earlier had on human behavior. There might have been, right or otherwise certain things, but these things had a grip earlier. But now law has the command. And that's how law has to be understood the best. And all what has been, thought about law, that has to be reconstructed with changing times. And I believe that this Faruqi's chapter is helping in that. I may again say that when I had a scanning through this chapter, I decided in the first moment that there should not be one lecture on it. There should be at least 3-4 lectures on this. And that's how I am trying to give the essence of it, the first part of it, where we have to get to certain things which will provide us a foundation for further understanding. That's why, and then I may say, yes, when it is the cultural atlas, I think law is one of the very important parts of the culture of any community, any system, any country, any group. So law is rightly placed in the book. And the first and the prime thing that has to be noted from Farooqi's version of things is that the whole universe can be visualized as the reality is that we find there is a creator and then rest of it is the creation. And then when we find a real difference between the creator and the creation. And hence we have to talk of the relationship between the two. When we talk of the relationship, it becomes very important that relationships are by feelings, by thinkings, by action, and so many other related things. So here the creator and the creation, Khaliq or Makhluk relationship, are as we say, the bandas and the banda nawaz. It becomes very important. And this is characterized by one's feelings, wish, desires, and like things. So it becomes very important that in this relationship, what is the will of the creator? So here the things can begin. So it's, we have to get to it that it's very important for the creation to know the will of the creator. And there begins the story of law. Because law will be a regulator of that relationship. And it has to be in accordance with the will of the creator. That's the first thing that has to be noted. And that's quite important. And that's the first point that has been made by this Farooqi. And here he characterizes the will, he calls it divine will. So with whatever you may call it, divine, godly, or whatever, but it's will. He demands something, he wishes something, he desires something. And that is the very important factor in regulation, in doing things, in managing things, in bringing about certain results. And we then, when we try to, give it some objective kind of understanding, we talk of it as morals, as values, and like that we understand it. So this, once we follow those values, once somebody infringes those values, we have results for that. Here the question is that there is an element of freedom in it. That when there are possibilities of you are following the will, you are not following the will, then the element of freedom remains there, and that's very much dominant. And that needs no arguments to show, because we do actually find it. We find it by scientific studies, empirical studies, or in day-to-day happenings and experiences. We find that yes, the choice remains there. So when that choice is there, then consequences of merit and demerit follow. The merit is followed by the reward, and where they, following of the will is not there, then it is followed by adverse effect. You may call it reward, but it is reward otherwise. So that's how, I don't want to use the term punishment and all that, because let us not follow ordinary terminologies in these kinds of things, but it results into a merit or a demerit. So once I talk of this, basic thing, which starts with the will, Rajay is making a very important point. He makes this, he says this will is a trust. And the trust is very important. Trust can be accepted by a person who has the ability to maintain it, who has an ability to understand it, who has an ability to follow it. And that's why here he refers to that provision, that verse of the Quran, where Allah says that I had offered this trust to mountains, to nature, to this thing and that thing. So they did not take it. But human being accepted it. And I here infer from it that human being had the ability to carry the trust, maintain the trust, follow the trust, follow the will. And that makes it important. That this relationship of getting the trust, having the trust, offering the trust, it should be taken as the foundation of the law. It should be taken as the foundation on the basis of which the will is to be carried forward. And then in ordinary course of things, we give it the name of law, we say Sharia and morals and some other kinds of things we do it. And that all is for an understanding. Otherwise, I believe that once you get to that as the foundation, at that time you are in a different state of things. That means it is a submission to that will, and you are directly getting things, feeling them, understanding them. That's why I may have a distraction for a second here, that I for some time I have been repeatedly saying that it's important to make Arabic language common among us, the people of the faith. And if you are not making it, this is a big kind of violation also, because you can and you are not doing it. The purpose, the argument is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling to his prophet that I have revealed this Quran in Arabic so that you can understand it. And then it is so important that even for a person of the height of the prophet, the language was important, the language of the Quran was important. And we all people are managing it without knowing the language and without making an effort to popularize it. That's, I think, that's not taking the will as it is, not trying to understand the will that way. So that's, I'll not elaborate that more so that I'm not distracted from the main thing. Here I am focusing on the will, which is in the form of law, in the form of Sharia, and what it is actually. So I can say what I said is that this is the relationship between the creation and the creator, and then the behavior has to be in accordance with the will of the creator. And that or anything which we can call truly the law in its true sense, that should fall in line with it. That will be the law. That's how you can have a touchstone for testing whether something is a law or is not a law, whether something will get a reward or will not get a reward. That angle becomes very important. And here I may say that man, he has to actualize the will. It's the question of actualizing it, because the creation is not meaningless. So the will has to be actualized, and that actualization of the will becomes very important, because if that will is not actualized, then in such a situation you are away from the purpose of the creation, from the will of the creator, and then the results which will be, they'll be very adverse from that point of view. So dear friends, for that, you remember that there should be a potential also. And the potential is that, you know, when Allah gave that position to human being, and gave him knowledge, gave him ilm, gave him, as we call that, asma at that time, at the time of creation, and then asked the angels to fall prostrate, bow before the Adam. Then it was an assertion of this thing that this creation is having, you know, capacity and ability to actualize the will of the Almighty Creator. That actualization is the goal. That's a very important thing to be achieved. If we take law from that point of view, I think there is a lesson for anybody, whoever is believing in anything, that law is not anything for fun. It is for actualizing the goal, for achieving something which is very important. And here in this case, it is to actualize the will of the Creator. If I take an example from other systems, that when, you know, there is a famous John Austin as a jurist, English jurist, he defined law as the command of the sovereign. Naturally, anybody may be explaining anything, but since the source of knowledge is Creator, so he may say something, it may be away from it, but it cannot be totally away from the grip of it. So structurally, I can say, where we find that as per the concepts which have been developed by Rajav Farokhi and which have been there since long and from the very beginning, we talk of the Creator and the creation. Here it's something which has been described in terms of the sovereign, and in terms of the subordinates, and in terms of command, the will. So there also the concept is of actualization. Now here is one thing very important. What is very important about the system of Quran or this Islam or what it is? Here, what you have to actualize is determined with reference to the will of the Creator. But otherwise, what has to be actualized is determined by human beings. And there is too much error, and there can be selfishness, there can be an agenda which may not be in favor of humanity, which may be to subjugate some people, which may be not to equalize and to discriminate, to make subordinate, to be coercive, and whatever. Here is the difference. Structurally, you find the sovereign and you find the subordinates. Here, when you find it is divine, and with reference to divinity, you find the things what have to be actualized. As if you take it as a code, then in that you can find that we always find that what is the actualization of this thing. Here I may refer to what ordinarily we talk in Institute of Objective Studies, Dr. Muhammad Manzoor Alam Saab, and we all of us are doing it now repeatedly. We talk of Walakad Karramna Bani Adam. So when to give the dignity to human being, this becomes a principle which cannot be, taken away, which has to stand there, which is the foundation, and anything can be tested on it. And in that, what is the will of the Creator and what has to be actualized. So the whole system of law has to go around this actualization of dignity of the human being. Worth it, so that the angels can bow before him, not the one who is in despondence and who is in that kind of poverty of dignity, poverty of thought, poverty of expression, and poverty of life, that it's not worthy of him. That makes it very important. I'll again say here, the do's and don'ts, if I put it in the ordinary language, are determined with reference to the divine will, not subjected to the selfish human thinking and understanding and pleasure, but they are definitely have to be in consonance and in accordance with the will of the Creator, which begins with that. And that's how when we look to all other kinds of, Quranic expressions, we find that we are bringing human being to that position which the Creator has wanted to be. But elsewhere we have found there are laws, there have been wishes, there have been regimes, maybe even among us the people of the faith, where they have not tried to understand what this basic thing is, which Ismail Rajai Faruqi tried to highlight in that, I said, in that period of human history, when we find that legal regime was getting very strong and human digression was also getting very strong, even getting to the killings of millions of people by other human beings. And then a constitutional regime was emerging in that situation. This was a very good contribution saying that this has to be in relationship to the Creator and the creation, and it has to be actualized in accordance with the same parameters, same dimensions, and then it has to have the same kind of visage, face, and give the same kind of feeling and result in same kinds of activities, which will result into the pleasure of the Creator rather than the displeasure of the Creator. That's how we talk of obedience, and the Creator is worth it to be obeyed in that way. The Creator can command to the extent that way, and then it is the pleasure for anybody to do the things as per that pleasure and to attain that pleasure, rather than to surrender to the will, whim, wish, desire, which is not in accordance with that. So where the human element becomes dominant in terms of coercion, in terms of this discrimination, in terms of discernibility, in terms of attaining the results, in terms of attaining the purposes of any law or any governance or any policy or any principle. So this is an indicator wherever you have to testify, even the human legislation, if I call it a very straight way, then that also has to be testified on this thing what Ismail Rajai Faruqi has made clear in his chapter, that this has to be in line with the relationship between the Creator and the creation. Dear friends, here is a very important thing that we have to see, that yes, human being, whatever it is, it's a human being is having the potential, he is having the capacity, as I said earlier. Now, what we do generally when we look to human legislations, anybody may be doing it through democratic process or through dictatorial this ordainment or like that. We find that all the people, they are in a lurk. They get it and they know that this is the order and we may have to follow it, or they will be made to follow it, or they may be punished for not following it. But when we look to the Creator, when He has given that will, that command, that law, that Sharia, He has given the human being potential, capacity to attain the result. That's very important. You can see very big difference. You can see under the present day systems, people are much talking of awareness, this thing, that thing. That's that's now they are starting realizing. But as the Creator, Allah, He is the Creator. He knows the things. He understands the things. He has the desired results. He also says, I don't expect anything what you cannot do. That's what we know by that. We don't put anybody under a burden of more than what he can bear. La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. That's there. So Allah, along with this, when He has put a responsibility, He has given capacity also. And what sort of capacity is required for any person is that, as I said, first thing is he must know. That's awareness, that's knowledge. Second is he must have the ability to actualize. These are very important questions. And then at the same time, he must have the capacity of also, gearing up to the situations, because we don't have every time the same situation. The capacity of malleability, as we call it, that must be with the person. And then also to really get to the results, there should be one more important thing, that's there should be fair decision making. When you follow something, then it must be with absolute justice. And if there is, because when you do something, as I was saying, you expect a reward. Then you want the reward for the things which you do. And then ultimately the scales of justice, they should be very fair, absolutely fair. So when we look to these things, these are very important. Then any question can be asked: if Creator is expecting the following of the will, has He equipped the human being with these kinds of things? That support system is there. I always say that whenever you have a legal system, then it has to have a culture to support it. If it is not having that culture, then it can't be. For example, when you talk of equality, and at the same time we are allowing discrimination in society otherwise, or our belief is in discrimination, our belief is in inequality, our belief is in some special kind of genetics, then at that time it can't work. So when we say that, the first thing that when the knowledge is required, yes, can we acquire that knowledge? Yes. Almighty Allah, the Creator, He has equipped human being with the capacities to have the knowledge. You can see, as we have at the first sight, we have we can see, we can hear, we can taste, we can smell, we can feel, and that's the first thing. No, that's basically you are equipped with something. That's how, in case of human being, there is more. What sociologists will say, human being has an erect posture, and he has a punching hand. You can catch this. A very powerful tiger may not be able to do things with one hand, with the palm. No. This is the physical kind of thing. And when we look to another part of it, that Creator has bestowed human being with a very good element of understanding, reason. And that's very good, this device of knowing things, understanding things, analyzing things. That means the Creator has not only made him and given him to follow the law, but He has given him the capacity to know it, to understand it. And at the same time, when he goes wrong by reason, maybe he's a human being, then at that time, as Allah loves human beings too much, a human being cannot visualize that ordinarily. So the truth is that Allah has too much love for the human being, and He has not left the human being in despondence if he goes wrong by reason, if he goes wrong by logic, if he goes wrong by understanding. That's why He has sent prophets. He has sent prophets. They have suffered. They have borne the brunt. They have suffered so much, from some adversities they have faced. But Allah has sent them. So with revelation. So revelation can correct you. That see how much, Allah is very much concerned about it. That if you go wrong by your understanding, wrong by your reason, then revelation is there to correct you. That means how much, Creator is concerned about it, that His will must be actualized. His law must be put in place. His law must get results. And for that, He has equipped the human being with all by which he can have the knowledge of that law, understanding of that law. And then where he goes wrong, he has the full freedom, but where he goes wrong, then he has put the revelation on his side. You can correct itself also. And that's how you can find, if you find the life of the prophets, that has not been an easy one. For those things, nobody would suffer so much and bear so much. And their bearing along with the sufferings is itself a proof for any reasonable person that they would not have suffered about that had that not been the truth. So they have stood with that. That has to be, a human being must look to it, that how they have stood with that revelation, and that connects us. And then when we find results also, that goes closer to the wish of the Almighty, where He gives dignity. We find more dignity in that version of law, in that version of Sharia, in that version of the rule or principle, which is in accordance with the revelation. And understanding the revelation is also. That's one of the very important things that must be noted. It's not merely, law is not merely giving to a society that today we are declaring something, we are doing that something. I think we have to learn. Any legislator has to learn from, from Almighty. That's what is required in modern times, and it should be taken very seriously. And then as regards the second, I would say it's the capability to actualize. And that's how we find that human being has the conscience. He understands the guilt. He understands the virtue. He has physical capacities, and he has communications, and he has the power of further, explaining the things. So that way, he has a capacity to actualize. Yes, definitely, that's not without challenges. And the challenge is from another human being. And that's how, where the revelation is understood in accordance with the will, there will be lesser conflict. Where human element, selfishness, self-interest gets more into it, then the capacity to actualize has to be more. And if it is not there, then you are having that way some kinds of difficulties in it. That can be a separate topic also, but this time I am referring to it to this extent. Yes, Allah has given the capacity to know, and He has given the equipments, the possibilities to actualize. And then I may carry it forward further and say that a good support that has been given to human being by Almighty is that He has made everything subservient to human being. There are Quranic provisions. For the sake of brevity, I am not referring to them. I have in mind the Maghrib prayers. But this is the essence of it, that Allah has made it clear that, I have made everything subservient to human being. That means he has to get to the real will understanding of it, then understand his own potentials, capacities, and then another step in the actualization will be that he has to understand it. When everything has been made subservient to him, then he has more responsibility. He has to put to use his capacities and abilities so that the will of the Almighty is actualized. And then as regards adjusting the things, as I was talking of malleability, so things do not remain the same. Creation is continuous. Allah is a living creator. It continues. And we say that kulla yawmin huwa fi shan. So we find that glory day by day we find it greatly there, and that's how the banda, the human being, he has to get with it. and he has no, that this is the best of the pleasures which a human being can enjoy, that he is making his conscience, his will, his understanding, his action, his feeling go with the will of the Almighty. And that's the best of the pleasures which one can have. So that's a very good capacity which a human being is possessing. And here I may mention that if somebody is missing it, he is at loss. If somebody is not utilizing this capacity, he is a suicider. No, he is killing his own self. He is not bringing it something with what Allah has bestowed him. He is not putting it to proper use. So, dear friends, I think there can be so much talk on it, and there are so many, provision in the Quran which show that yes, you are, put it as you say, you only talk of Ashraful Makhlukat, and Ashraful Makhlukat has not to be understood that you are giving importance to things which are not so important, and you are taking away importance to the things which are very important. That is discernibility. That's the difference between a mu'min, a believer, and a non-believer. That's how we sometimes say that be afraid of mu'min. He looks through Nurullah. He has that discernibility. He understands that. And that's a very great capability which a person must use in his life, and then see that where he is going wrong, where he is going right, where he is in consonance with the will of the Creator, where he is deviating from the will of the Creator, where he is taken away by the ordinary pleasures, and where he is missing the actual, real, durable, and this everlasting pleasures, where he is doing it. And as I was telling you earlier, that the ordinary thinkers, the jurists, they are not definitely subscribing, or they are not knowing it, because nobody has explained these things to them. If I talk of Jeremy Bentham, he is also talking of, as I talk of the pleasure, he also talks of the pleasure. But his pleasure is the worldly, only the materialistic pleasure, which I don't say there should not be that pleasure. Yes, it should be there. But wherever you find it results into the harm, and it results into a kind of displeasure from the Creator, and that is basically, that's the loss, that's the harm. There you should stop. Then you must have that ability to stop there. And then that's how he has tried to give the theory of pain and pleasure. That law must be to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. And that's how he gave the theory of modern legislation. That means the duty of the legislature is to make a law which gives a lot of pleasure, which minimizes pain, which maximizes pleasure. I don't know if the modern legislatures are doing that, but that is the principle on which the modern theory of legislation is based. But we find that in reality, this is where the Creator is giving you the divine principles, the divine will, and wants to maximize the pleasure and only give us the pleasure. And he gives along with you that the equipment of conscience, understanding, then potentials, capacities that you can actualize his will with responsibility and with understanding of the guilt, and at the same time you understand the responsibility. That's how a mother, when she is having the pleasure of the child in mind, she spends sleepless nights. She knows it gives some pain, but she knows there is greater pleasure in it. That motivates. That's the actual reality, and that's truth of it. And at the same time, it's not so. I have quoted in one of my books, Maintenance Rights of Muslim Women, Children, Parents, and Other Relatives, a story from US, where you can find that a baby in one house. Maybe the lady was rather singular or whatever, and the baby had taken the lipstick stick and she had rubbed it on the floor, and then written something in a childish way. But when the lady returns, She had put a kettle on the heater, the water was boiling, and then she was so angry with the baby that she put the hot water on the marks, and along with that, she put some water on the hand of the baby also. And that burned. That's the story given in some other books also. You can understand it that how human being can get astray, get away. But when we look to the Almighty, that when He has given you the capacity, He has given you the understand, the capacity of the guilt, capacity of the wrong thing, and then at the same time, the sense of responsibility. That's very important. And the sense of responsibility is a very good kind of, equipment which is with you, that is social, that's cultural, that is spiritual, that is physical, that enables you to actualize something, to bring into existence something. And that has been bestowed by Almighty. And then I was saying the expectation is that you must be judged by your deeds. And that's what Quran is promising. That's what Allah's will is promising. It is rejecting the theory of that original sin. It's rejecting it. When you are born innocent. It's not that, as some faiths are there, I'm not criticizing them. I'm just telling it so they may also understand. I have nothing to do with it. But I am saying you are not born with a sin. You are not born with a wrong. You are born innocent. Yes, you are definitely in the situation where you are born, and you are born with all the actual capacities, abilities, and all that. And then you have not, the society has not to say that the person was born with some original sin and he will suffer according to that. No. Rather, the society has a responsibility through sadaqat, through other kinds of help. If that baby is in some kind of adversity, to facilitate and groom the abilities, the capacities in that baby, and then that becomes, worth it, that he also tries to actualize the will of Almighty. And this is the expectation, and that's what the law should do. Law is not there only that somebody's desire is there. It is the desire of the king, it's the desire of the Maharaja, it is the desire of a group of people. No. And then if somebody violates, there will be punishment. No. This is, law is basically an instrument to promote the society, enable the society, get the functions, defined, so that you make it worth calling a human society. That's a very small part of it, where there is a group, there may be certain people who suffer from some aberrations, from delinquency. For them, there can be that kind of law. Otherwise, the people have to fall in line and believe everybody is born innocent, good, and has a capacity, has a future, should be supported, should be made able to actualize that will. And then ultimately, he should have an expectation. What is the expectation? And that expectation is also given by Almighty. On the one hand, when he says, he gives a direction, Idilu huwa aqrabu lit-taqwa. You do justice. That means we have to do justice. We have to follow his will and then get to everybody so that we perform it. And when he says, you do, then Allah is most adil. He is most just. He is most fair. And there the justice is absolute. The scales of his justice are absolute. He is giving confidence. He is giving a vow. He is giving a promise to the creation, to the man, that you do and I do not violate my promise. I do not. Many times, I know you are reading in the Quran that Allah does not deviate from his promise. Allah fulfills his promise. And that's, very important. And that's how you can see that kind of legal system coming into existence, and that has been propounded with the divine will. Dear friends, I am conscious of the fact that you are very learned people, and then you have a lot of human experience as well. And you may talk of it, all what I am saying can be a utopia. It's not. It is not so, because it is practical. It is worth doing. It is, having all those qualities where it can be put in place. And then, if you argue more, then I will say, even if there have not been governments, states, community leaders in favor of it, still, most of the people are able to follow the divine. And they are doing it, they are following it. And I would say, if today you find any good in any system, that is because of that influence of the will of the Creator on the hearts and minds and deeds of the people. No state can say that we are doing it. And the people who are managing the state, they themselves are not able to do it. And therefore, it's not a utopia. It is existing. I see with my open eyes that there are people who restrain themselves even in the absence of the authorities from doing the things, with the hope that the Creator is an absolute and most just judge. He is giving, he is the giver, and he will give. And there is nothing that you will say that whether you may be in some kind of frustration. No, you have the confidence and that you believe in that Creator, and that's how today. And if this thing is understood by those who are basically not following the will, are not allowing this thought to get to the minds, actually they are, I would say, it's not that they are not understanding it. They understand it. They are overtaken. There is the element of devil also. So they are overtaken. So it's not a utopia. No, not at all. Then I think it will be, my existence is not a utopia. Your existence is not a utopia. We are existing, we are following. And then even in those who have not read in schools, colleges, and others, you can find in your homes. Just see your sisters, daughters, some brothers, some others will find that if they follow the will, yes, you will get the answer. Yes, they follow it, and they follow with the same thing, that will get the reward. Allah is most just, and the scales of justice of Allah are most fair. So that's, dear friends, I can see that this will has to be translated, and people have worked on it. They have given it the shape of the Sharia, but I will see that, I'll again say that the actual version is done in accordance with the Creator, not in accordance with the nobility from this period to that period. There was one caste of the people, one tribe of the people, one group of the people, one party of the people who are shaping it and giving the details. No, it's the Almighty Himself, and that's how the divine will has to be hold strong. But my note of caution here is that in the line in history, we have seen many people, they have come in the form of false, this materialists, then some mystics also. Some have tried to be very learned people, and somehow come in different positions of kings and all that. They have created certain kinds of problems, but I think that is the first thing now to actualize it, that we must understand that, and at the same time we must try to put ourselves in this. And the purpose of the law, I'll end up by saying, is to actualize the will of the Creator as He has given us the capacity through reason, and then correct ourselves through revelation, and then have the ability of malleability from time to time. Allah bless you all. If there are questions, please ask it because Azan has taken place there. And we'll definitely have, I'll request our administrator Atar Saab to have more lectures on it. I think it's very important. Not because I'm saying it, but because it is important. Allah bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You can raise your hands if you have any question, or you can type it in chat box or question and answer, so that we can ask Professor Wani to respond to them. As of now, I can't see any question there.
So we can have questions in next lecture, I believe. So,
Khalid?
Acha, okay, please.
Hello. Khalid, you can, Dr. Khalid Alam, can you please ask your question?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Alaykum assalam.
Yeah. My first, I have two things to just. First is with regard to the starting point where you have described when Allah has given the book to different creations, and Insan was the one who accepted it. But after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds, for they are truly wrongful to themselves and ignorant of the consequences. So that makes the human to be ignorant, or you can say a foolish one to take up this responsibility. How do you explain that? And the second thing which I found in the book of Dr. Faruqi, on page 168, something which is very unique, which you did not refer to, is describing that Sharia law is the only law in the world which accommodates other laws. To judge a Jew, you can use the Jewish scriptures. For Christians, using the Christian scriptures.
I'm finding some in the first question.
It is there on the page 168 under the values of Sharia. And this is something very unique. I mean, I think we are having it in India under the personal laws, but it's not the way the Sharia has worked at the time of the Prophet and the Khalifas. Thank you.
But I would say I couldn't get, because of maybe the sound system, I could not get the questions that way. So either we have the option of repeating them, or I may take them some other.
You did not get both the questions, or just the first question?
I didn't get the question properly. Maybe because of our system. Can you repeat it, the first one, and then?
The first question was with regard to the ayat where Dr. Faruqi refers to that indeed we offered the trust to the heavens and earth and the mountain, and they declined to bear it.
Okay. So
But
what's your response? What's your question about that?
Again? Hello?
Yeah. So one is about the offering it to this trust to heavens and all that. One is about it.
Yes.
And what is the question on that?
The question is, and then the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala adds that, but man beard it, indeed he was unjust and ignorant. How do you explain that?
Okay, what's the other question?
So humans were ignorant, unjust, and some call it wrongful to take it. How do you explain that?
Okay, I would say
That
yes.
means that were not
If
ignorant.
we take it, human
And
being
then the
was.
second question is with regard to the.
Let me first respond to it in a very simple way in one word. I would not say he was unjust. I would say yes, he was not knowing, but he was possessing the abilities to know it. And that's why I said that he is having the capacities. God has given him the capacity to know it. And at that time, whatever it was, maybe when somebody is ignorant, maybe he has an urge to know it. It's not always to be taken as a negative kind of thing.
Having the capacity, or because he took it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped him to build up this capacity.
कलीम साहब, excuse me, आप लैपटॉप पर हैं या मोबाइल पर हैं, थोड़ा सा मुंह से दूर रखिए तो आवाज साफ आएगी, बहुत करीब है आपके शायद.
I think that did he have the capacity, or because he took up the trust, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped him to build this capacity?
So it can be, it can be debated. By my, considered opinion is that when somebody is with a potential, with a capacity, he may not be having knowledge at that time. This is a life process. And then definitely, once he had the capacity to know, he might not have been possessing, everything at that time. And nobody can have. He did possess some knowledge. He did possess understanding because it was from the very beginning. But along with the life process, he has to get more and more. And that's, how human being was worth to have this trust. This can be a kind of simile also, that if we give something to somebody who does not understand, maybe he's like a hill, he's like a mountain, he's like an inert kind of thing. Here it is to express the better position of human being, that he was possessing all these capacities, and though he was not possessing everything from the very beginning, but he was possessing the capacities to have them. And then at the same time, I would not say that when we talk of Zaluman Jahula, it may not be always taken as something very negative. I think it can have very positive angle also, and that positive angle has to be carried forward so that if somebody, if even in when we find somewhere that when Allah tells to the Prophet that you were not possessing this thing, I may not ordinarily use those words, but Allah is using them. You were not possessing this thing, I gave you this thing. You were in search of this thing, I gave you this thing. So that's how we have to take this Zaluman Juhula, and the humanity has to take it, that we have the ability and capacity to actualize the will, and before that we can understand it. We have the capacity, we have the conscience, through conscience we have the motivation, and therefore this is our responsibility and we should do it. At the same time, there can be for the argument's sake or hair splitting or any other kind of thing, there can be, as we have to use human language for things, there is always another set of words against one set of words, so that can go like that. But I'll again say my considered opinion about it, and I agree with Faruqi to this extent. Yes, the human being was possessing the capacity, though he was not possessing the whole knowledge at the same time, because something had to come. The revelation had to come. He had a capacity to receive it. He received it. He kept receiving it. He kept transmitting it. And up to this day, it is being received and transmitted, analyzed, understood. Yes, there are various kinds of defects in understanding, in communication, in other things. But at the same time, wherever there is a possibility of again recorrecting oneself in the course of time. And that's why, along with, as I was talking of the reward, Allah also says, when He says, I'll take things into account, He also says, I am Ghafurur Rahim. That means he keeps those possibilities there, that probably when your intention is good, when you are innocently doing the things, when your motivation is correct, then definitely some error can be there. I am Ghafurur Rahim. So that's how I can understand it in my own way. And then you were referring to some I have not mentioned. I think that can be you can tell me what was that thing on another page.
That's on page 168.
What's that?
It is referring that Islamic Sharia was the only Sharia in the world that accommodated other laws. Like the Jews can be judged based on the Jewish books, Christians can be judged on the Christian books, and this is the uniqueness of the Sharia, that acknowledges other laws within it, within its rule.
Yeah, that's very good. I actually what I did.
That reflects that exists possibly in India as a personal law. And that's the beautiful part of the Sharia.
I'll tell you what the what the position is, that when we think of the Quran, I think one of the very important things in the beginning is being ignored by anybody, and that's very bad of it, and that results into different problems. You can yourself see when in Surah Baqarah, when Allah talks of that who are those muttaqi people, as we say, Alif Lam Mim Zalikal Kitab La Rayba Fihi lil muttaqin. Then he talks of it, who are the muttaqi. And one of the very important characteristics of those muttaqis is that the people believe in the revelations which came before and which are coming now. That important thing is not being, taken. And at the same time, what is there that in any situation, if we find there is any conflict, there can be difference only in the situation of a conflict. Otherwise, if there is consonance, there is no problem. Whether you read it from any of the books and it is in consonance, that you should not commit fornication. You should not, take usury. You should not, exploit this. You should not discriminate. Many things can be there, and most of the things I think will be like that. It's one, and then it's another ultimate version of it. That's how we have to go with it. But wherever we find that there is a contradiction, there I believe that scope which we find somebody is suggesting something, another person is suggesting another thing, I will also say that this has to be ultimately corrected with reference to again the same, the will of the Creator, what He wants. And then there also you have to apply both your reason as well as you will apply the clear will, which you understand, which you see. And then we are in a world which is politically so structured that you find that a system of personal laws has evolved. And there you find difficulties in accommodating people. I believe that this time you don't have the will to actualize, and will to actualize will mean that you put it in the form of a legislation, but at the same time you have the will to explain that you can never take away, and you can never omit it. For example, I'll give you the recent case in our Supreme Court which was decided and fought about triple talaq. My understanding and only understanding of triple talaq recognition is that it was accepted only on the ground that when a lady said that this person told him, you are divorced 100 times, 3 times, and this thing, and she felt hurt, insulted, and her dignity was hurt, and she did not want to live with that man then. And it was because of the maintenance of the dignity of that woman, that Gayur woman. She did not want to live with that person, and it was accepted. All what was discussed in this case, what was advocated by the advocates, Muslims and otherwise, I will be very happy if they will come with the original documents and give it to IOS, that these are the documents from where it was otherwise recognized on some other reason. Everything was pleaded, but this point which I said was never brought to the knowledge. And the legislation which later on came, that also did not consider it. I think it was only me who talked in few programs and here, but nobody took a note of it. So yours actualization is you have to keep arguing, explaining, understanding, correcting your own versions. The kinks which they have put somewhere, some groups of people have put certain things somewhere, and I think that is the effort to actualize. You may not impose it on others, and it's for them. Then when you are so clear that they get hidayah. Otherwise, I'll take this position on it, and I think we should. That's why I said we should have some more things, and it's not possible. I think for me alone, and at the same time for me once alone to do the things. But I think it's very important to have. That's why I'm requesting Atta Saab to arrange something more on it, and maybe on some other occasions. You have still time in Saudi Arabia for Maghrib and this, and we here people must have their rather under that this compulsion, I should say. I wish for prayer and all that. I'm very glad, and we always expect of you from very critical queries, and it's very important, very good. We should have them. Then only we can, get to the realities and understand the real will. And I tell to my students, please make me learn something. Ask a question which I do not know, to which answer I don't know this time. At least I have to think on it, and God will be happy with me. He has given me a very good brain. He has given me a very good mind. He has given me a very good capacity. And I will think more about the things and then tell to the world. Otherwise, Quran is there. Why Allah is telling me you do it. I am not going to replace the codes which have been made, but I have the right to tell to the if they are showing the Justinian's code, but I have a right to say that when Napoleon was in Cairo in Egypt, he was reading Mauta Imam Malik. And it is on that basis that he could make the Napoleon's code, and which he wanted to impose on the territories where France was ruling. I have a right to say it. I must say it. And I have a right to project the wisdom. That is my thing. And it's not that I'll say, okay, you have the right to your own personal law. I have a right to my own personal law. It's not like that. At the same time, there is another thing, how you are striving, exercising your intelligence, that you make izhar of the best in following the will of the Creator. How are you doing it? So there is not, that's why I was saying earlier, what a brilliant thing is for a mu'min, that he keeps continuously understanding the will of Allah. And then he is a living creator, and you are going with the creation, day-to-day changes. Kulla yawmin huwa fi shan, and you are with it, you are busy with it. That's what I was saying. And it's not that okay, whether it is a Farooqi Sahib or any other will say, okay, this is their law, this is our law. No, you have to strive always for it. And about public laws, we can have discussions on how in public law we can, have this structure. We can apply this theory. We can see on that count also. In military laws, in peace laws, in international laws, in intellectual property laws, in criminal laws, we have to apply this model. I think that's very important. And that's my response. And thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Afzal Ghani Sahab, for such an inspiring lecture. We will come up with the lecture on remaining topics of this great book, inshallah, soon. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.
Okay. I am grateful to Dr. Atta Saab he will do now PhD, and I would like to be, I like to be his guide because I also want to learn many things because he is taking things in a very nice way, and then he has the responsibility. And it is by the grace of God he is with me, and I'm grateful to him and all those who participated. And then at the same time, let us continue this discourse and try to achieve the things the best we get the reward here and in the hereafter.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.